Okay, so welcome. My name is Jenny Garrett. I'm an award-winning career coach, author, and leadership trainer. My book so far have explored the empowerment of working women, but I'm also publishing a book very soon on equity in organizations, in particularly racial equity. Together with my team, we use our years of experience in coaching and leadership to support women and leaders from ethnically diverse backgrounds to progress at work, as well as supporting majority group leaders to make inclusion happen. So, self-confidence, our topic for today. It means trusting in your own judgment, your capacities, and your abilities. It's about valuing yourself and feeling worthy, regardless of any imperfections or what others might believe about you. I wonder, other speakers, would you mind muting yourself for the moment? Because I can hear a little bit of background noise, and then maybe come off mute when you introduce yourselves. Self-efficacy and self-esteem are often used interchangeably with self-confidence, but they are subtly actually different. We gain a sense of self-efficacy when we see ourselves mastering skills and achieving goals. And this encourages us to believe that if we learn and work hard in a particular area, we'll succeed. It's this type of confidence that leads us to accept difficult challenges and keep going in the face of setbacks, which we all have. And then there's self-esteem. Self-esteem is a more general sense that we can cope with what's going on in our lives and that we have the right to be happy. And also self-esteem comes in part from feeling that the people around us approve of us. We may or may not be able to control it, but if we experience a lot of criticism or rejection from others, our self-esteem can easily suffer unless we support it in other ways. A couple of years ago, I did some research around confidence, and 400 people completed the research. And what we found is there was a gender confidence gap. People always talk about women needing to gain more confidence, but not necessarily men. However, the confidence gap wasn't as big as we thought it would be. 44% of men and 56% of women were often bothered by their confidence. So that gap was only about 12%. I think the way it's often talked about is if there's a huge gap. I'm not sure why that is. It might be that more men are now admitting that they have challenges with their confidence than they ever had before, or maybe women are more confident than they ever have been before. We also found that there's an age curve to confidence. So, in your 20s, your confidence might not be so high, but as you go into your 30s and 40s, you really kind of come into your own and your confidence develops. And then it might start to go down again in your 50s, 60s, through outside issues, things like maybe being made redundant or loss or bereavement or ill health. Those things can make you lose your confidence. And also what we found is your boss can have the biggest negative impact on your confidence. So if you have a boss who's very critical or bullying or undermining, or colleagues doing the same thing, that can really knock your confidence. So can your early experience in life as well. And Tanya at some point will also just post a link to that confidence research and those survey findings for you. So during the session today, executive coaches, Jessica Rogers, Nita Sharma, Lisa Leonce, and Carol Stewart, all listed in the diverse coaching directory, a directory which connects corporate organizations with coaches from ethnically diverse backgrounds, all working at the most senior levels in organizations. They're going to discuss what confidence means for them and why it really matters and what we can do to really boost our confidence, and specifically how a coach can help. So Jess, Nita, Lisa, and Carol are going to briefly introduce themselves. I'll start by asking them a few questions, and then we will open up to you to ask questions and reflections. We really like it when it's an interactive session. So if you have thoughts, research, insights, as we go through the session, please do type them in the chat, and I will also look out for your questions as well. The hashtag for the event is really simple, just hashtag confidence. And we will also post the socials for the coaches and the directory in the chat. Feel free to tweet about us or link with us on LinkedIn as well. So we're going to start with a quick poll, and I will get that poll up right now. Okay, so just a really simple couple of questions. Do you feel others are more confident than you usually? And also, does your level of confidence hold you back? So do you feel that others are more confident than you? Yes, no, or maybe. And does your level of confidence hold you back? Yes, no, or maybe. So do complete that poll. I'm hoping you can see it. And if you can't see it, maybe you're joining from an iPad or something like that. Perhaps you can just respond in the chat. So I can't see anyone completing the poll. Can you see the poll? Yeah. Oh, thank you for completing it. Maybe it's a little bit slow on my end. Tanya, can you see the results? I'm wondering, because it's not showing up that anyone's completed it on mine.
Hi, Jenny. Yeah, I'm able to see it. Yeah. Do you
Yes.
want me to?
Can you see how many people have responded? Does it say zero of the number?
27 so far. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, then if you end poll and then show poll, that would be great, because it's not on my end showing that.
Share results.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And let us know what it says, because I actually can't see it.
Oh, okay. Sorry. All right. So for the first question, do you feel others are more confident than you? 56% have answered yes.
Okay.
4 have answered no. 41 have answered maybe.
Okay, lovely. And the second question?
Does your level of confidence hold you back? 74% feel yes, 7% feel no, and 19% feel maybe.
Lovely, thank you very much. So 56% of you feeling that others are more confident, and 70% of you feeling that it can hold you back. So you're definitely in the right place. You're going to get some strategies and some ideas that are going to really help you today. So let's get to some introductions, please. I'm going to start with you, Jess, if you could introduce yourself.
Thanks, Jenny. So I'm Jessica Rogers. I am a leadership and executive coach, and I work predominantly with leaders in large corporations across the banking, retail, and legal sectors. And I also work with leaders in public sector and those who are taking a step into entrepreneurship. And I've been doing this work for nearly 14 years. And a key thing that I've really learned is the importance of people finding and using their voice, and doing this from a place of real authenticity. And now this takes real self-belief and confidence. And this is something I've worked hard in myself to develop in myself over the years. And I think it's really something that men and women can develop. And I think confidence, you can build your confidence over time, and use your situations to really build evidence of your confidence. So it's great to be here today to talk about that, and I look forward to engaging in the conversation some more.
Thanks so much, Jessica. And Nita.
Hello, everyone. I'm Nita Sharma, and I always see myself someone who's of a mature age, is always work in progress. I've been working as a coach, consultant, and a facilitator for over 25 years. I work globally as well as locally as well, both in the corporate world and in the world of charities. Why I continue to do this work is I'm always awed by the transformation that people make. And for me, my passion in this work of seeing the growth and the development that an individual can have continues for me to work in this field. So confidence, self-belief is so central to my way of life. And I often see that how that impacts on others in terms of how they want to be the best versions of themselves.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Nita. And Lisa.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm pleased to be with you today. I'm Lisa Leonce and I'm an executive career and leadership coach. I'm also a host, speaker, consultant and trainer. And my clients are mainly executive and senior positions, and those transitioning into various leadership roles. I work with people from various sectors, from business, banking, armed forces, law enforcement, to healthcare, IT, charity and voluntary sector.
Wonderful, thank you. And Carol.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today. I'm Carol Stewart. I'm an executive career leadership coach, author, speaker, trainer. I'm the author of Quietly Visible, Leading with Influence and Impact as an Introverted Woman. And I'm a 5 times LinkedIn Top Voice UK. I specialise in coaching introverted women who are senior leaders. And I coach women, men, introverts, extroverts to lead with confidence, influence and impact. And I also work with organisations to help them develop their talent and provide a range of workshops, trainings, webinars and talks. A lot of it is centred around the soft skills and the personal development, helping people to have that belief in themselves to achieve what they want to achieve.
Amazing. What a wealth of experience you all bring. It's fabulous to have you here. So I'm going to get straight to it and ask the first question. In your experience, what causes some clients to have low confidence and how do they realize it? I'm going to start with you, Lisa.
Okay, so looking at the first part of the question in terms of what causes low self-esteem, and there's a number of factors. One is the early childhood experience. As you know, your childhood shapes a person's life. So those experiences such as maybe not fitting in at school or having authority figures that are disapproving of you, or constantly hearing that you're not good enough, or being criticised no matter how hard you try, all of those things affect you. If you're not meeting your parents' expectations, if you're not getting the attention, the love and the support that you need as you're growing up, all these things have an impact on your confidence level. The other aspect could be appearance and that perception about appearance as well. If you tend to look down on yourself as in your appearance, or shy away because of various factors, whether it's your you may have scarring or your skin color, as we know, obesity, all sorts of different things that could cause low self-confidence too. Also trauma and abuse. If you've experienced abuse of any kind, whether that's physical, sexual or emotional abuse, that can have an extreme impact on you, because it's difficult for you to then enjoy life and the world and trust people when you've got those that impact that's there that has to be dealt with. So that's another factor that can impact low self-confidence. And one of the major factors is career issues. So if you don't fit into a job, which is one of the most common causes of low self-confidence, if you don't fit in because of your skill sets don't match, and that could be that you're overqualified to do the job that you're doing and not being recognized for that, or that you may feel that everyone in that work environment is more qualified or more experienced than you, that effect also can affect how you feel yourself in terms of self-confidence. If you feel threatened by your colleagues, or you might feel nervous about losing your job. If you've got a bad relationship with your boss, that can also lead to some insecurities and have negative impact on that relationship, and your relationship with your colleagues also impacts that as well. So there's a number of things that can influence low self-confidence. And also if you've gone through a difficult event in life, a serious illness or bereavement, that also can affect and impact how you are. So there's lots of things there, just touching on that. But looking at the second part of the question is, how do you realize that you have got low self-confidence? Because sometimes it's you know, most people aren't aware of everything that's going on, and because it takes a looking at self, a looking internal and finding out what's going on for you. And so if you find yourself being socially withdrawn, so you find excuses not to go to events, or Avoid making plans and meeting people outside the necessary, the absolutely necessary that you have to go to. That could be a sign of low confidence, not being comfortable in a social setting. If you feel anxious or emotional turmoil about certain things, you don't normally feel anxious about something if you're you know, certain and confident about that. If you're unsure about something, that's where anxiety comes in, because it's the unknown. One of the things that I used to suffer from a lot for a long time is being able to accept compliments. That's a sign as well of low self-esteem, low confidence. You don't believe that you deserve the confidence or the compliment. Not that it's unwanted. It's just a case of, oh, but I'm just doing my job, but this is what I normally do. This is how I'd act if anyone asked me to help them. And you just put it aside, but actually just accepting that and thinking, actually, yes, I do deserve that praise because I have done something good, or I have done something well. And so accepting compliments is something.
Okay, I'm going to jump in because you've shared so much there.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, there's been a lot, and I just want to hear from other voices, other perspectives, or perhaps building on some of the points that you've made. So just a reminder of the question, Jessica, in your experience, what causes some clients to have low self-esteem and how do they realize it?
I want to pick up on something Lisa said about being a minority. I think if sometimes when you're in a minority in your organization or in your team, you've got a different perspective that's different to the majority, the group, that can sometimes affect confidence, because you can sometimes feel isolated, you can feel alone, you can feel that no one else is on your wavelength. And as a result of that, it can mean that you hold back. You don't want to share your ideas because you don't want to be different. And that in turn really affects your confidence, because you're not able to use your voice, you're not able to articulate your perspective because it's different to everyone else's. And I think that can be that can have a real impact on confidence.
Absolutely, fantastic point, and something that leaders should be considering, when they're supporting their colleagues. And Lisa.
Yes.
I don't know why I said to Lisa. Sorry, Lisa, you said lots. I meant Carol.
Yeah, I think Lisa and Jessica have covered quite a lot. But what I would add to it is that when you're outside of your comfort zone and you're in unfamiliar territory and you're not feeling equipped for the task at hand or what it is that you want to do, that can bring on that lack of confidence. And also Lisa touched on sort of early childhood experience, and what I would add to that is not just the negative experiences, but being having high expectations put on you, whether it's as a child or as an adult, where people are putting a high expectations on you and you don't feel that you can live up to that. That can affect your confidence as well. How people recognize, I tend to get people come to me, the coaching, when they're recognizing that they're stuck, that they want to progress, they know that they can, but they just don't feel that they have the confidence to go after what it is that they really want. And sometimes it's a case of the pain of staying where they're at becomes far greater than just staying there in that comfort zone. They recognize if they don't do something about it now, what the implications will be further down the line.
Yeah, I think it's just listening to you, actually, I'm thinking about that's just untapped potential piece, isn't there? People who come and I know I can do more, I know I can be more, I know I can make the difference I want to make, but actually I'm the one holding myself back, not other people, and that frustration inside them. Yeah. So Nita, your thoughts? And you're muted, I think.
So just building on what everybody said, this is very relevant. I was coaching somebody this morning. I do a lot of coaching in the NHS for careers, and what sort of really that I want to kind of highlight from there is that the environment and organizational change and the toxicity that can exist within an organization can impact on people's confidences. And it's certainly the person I was coaching for the first time this morning, he was feeling like his confidence had been absolutely eroded because he got shifted from one role to another. On top of that, what he also experienced, which happens a lot in organizations, that we have become so much more aware of, is microaggression, some of the subtle forms of, you know, in seem like inconsequential things, but they're actually, when they accumulate, it has quite a lot of impact. And so I think those are some of the factors, along with your cultural heritage, your being a minority, all of those factors certainly can have an impact. And I guess, how do you become aware of it? And this person this morning I was coaching, the word he used was, I'm in limbo, is when someone recognizes, I'm in limbo, I'm stuck, what Carol was actually saying. And perhaps they're spending a lot of time comparing themselves to someone else and sort of saying, well, how come someone's doing so much better than I am doing, really? And there's a sense, I think, somatically, which is about what I would say, in our bodies, we know that when something isn't right, but we're not really tuned in to pay attention to it that much, but it's happening. When we listen to ourselves and our bodies, we can begin to recognize something isn't right for me. Something isn't right for me in the role that I'm in. I know that I can do more. And certainly when I do career coaching, people are often coming with, I know I can do more, but I don't know what. I don't know what I want, is one of the big questions that people often come to the coaching sessions with me and sort of saying, so our role becomes, well, how do you begin to discover what it is you want, really?
I love that. So much information from all of you, actually, that is so helpful and hopefully resonating with the audience. We have had a question. I'm going to save that question for the moment, but please know I am acknowledging it's there. And if anyone else has any questions, do feel free to type them in the chat. If you want them to be anonymized, you can send it directly to me so that others don't see it, and I won't mention your name. But we're really interested in your questions, and great to see some coming through already. So the next question from me, what are some mistakes that you find your clients make when trying to develop their confidence? Yeah, what happens that sort of, that maybe gets in the way of them developing their confidence? I'm going to start with Nita this time.
Well, I was kind of thinking about this, and I think people think in a very linear way, so that there is one solution. And I think, and the second thing that I think people think they need to do is fix themselves, that there's something inherently wrong with themselves, that which case, they need to fix so that they can feel okay about them, rather than coming from a place of, how do I develop myself? How can I stretch myself out of my comfort zone? And I think that's a really an important element of, beginning to address some of those issues that you might be bringing into the coaching, and creativity, and recognizing that there are so many different options, different perspective, and really moving away from a very, as I was saying at the beginning, a very linear process. This is an organic process of exploration and testing and working things out, really.
I think that's so liberating, isn't it? I'm thinking about feedback that you might get from a line manager who might say, yeah, you're doing everything right, but you need to develop your confidence a bit more, for me to consider you for maybe that stretch opportunity or whatever. And then immediately I think you go into, something's wrong with me. Why aren't I confident enough? Oh, that sort of deficit model. And what you're saying is actually, no, everything's right with me. But I can still expand, my awareness of how good I am or what I'm good at, and stretch that a bit. And I think that's, I think that's really helpful when we're thinking about confidence, because we can get into that black and white thinking that sort of, one is okay, one is not, or in a very linear way. So thank you.
Just one thing, I suppose, just to kind of build on what you're saying, is that I think the people, my belief is we're doing the best we can given where we are, and sometimes we don't know the resources that we have, and I think that's a really powerful, empowered place to start from, as opposed to there's something wrong with me, really.
Yeah, absolutely, couldn't agree more with you there. And Carol, what would you like to add?
I'd say that using a blanket, I lack confidence, so a blanket approach to lacking confidence, rather than pinpointing exactly what it is that you're lacking confidence in. Because if you just write yourself off and say, oh, I lack confidence, I can't do this, I can't do that. But if you break it down, what specifically is it that you lack confidence in, it can make it seem less scary. I've got a session with a client this week. She's going for a promotion for a director position, and she's feeling that she was lacking confidence about the interview. And so I was sort of like asking her about her experience of interviews, and then one of the things that she came up was about making a fool of herself in the interviews. So I said to her, okay, so I said, how many interviews have you had in your career? And she said, oh, and then she sort of added up in her head and she said about 10. And I said, and how many times have you made yourself look foolish in an interview? And she said, oh, well, there was one time when I did. And I said, okay, so what happened? And she said what she said. And then she said, but I got the job anyway. And so I said, oh, if you would have acted foolish, would they have given you the job? And she went, no. But she had blown it out of proportion, and was writing herself off thinking that, but the reality was there was no evidence to support that. So I said to her, so in the whole of your 20-odd career, you've never made yourself look foolish at an interview. What makes you think that you're going to start doing that now?
Such a great example of how our mind can play tricks on us and how we can really make things much bigger than they are, or even catastrophize and create that confidence block in ourselves. And I really like the way we're talking about different aspects of confidence, the sort of limiting beliefs we have, the stories we tell ourselves, but also the external environment and how that impacts confidence as well. And I think sometimes too often we can concentrate on it's all us, or we can concentrate on it's all the organization, but it is this combination, I think, that makes us successful and develop our confidence. Jessica, what do you think?
Yeah, I think something that I see, I think you're absolutely right. Something I also see is people trying to be something else. So they think, well, I'm not good enough, or I'm not doing the right thing. So looking externally to almost find, it's good to find role models, but find people who they want to be like. And so what happens then is people become quite inauthentic. And when you're being inauthentic, it actually takes a lot of energy. So they're spending so much energy trying to be something else or trying to be like someone else that they lose sight of what they've actually got and what they're actually good at. And the thing about sometimes doing that and being inauthentic is that, you're never going to be quite as good because you're using the energy in the wrong place. So I think that can be a really kind of big mistake, that kind of looking elsewhere to find the confidence, when actually the real gift is tapping into what you're good at and what your superpowers are, as it were, and operating from that place, as opposed to, trying to operate from somewhere else.
Yeah, really helpful insight. Thank you. And Lisa?
Yeah, so the only thing I would add to that is that looking at for a quick solution. They come looking for a quick solution. They think that I can do a confidence course or a program, a self-esteem one, or have a couple of coaching sessions and I'll have my self-confidence done, fixed. It's a long-term journey, and it's a deep dive into yourself and looking at where you are and how you view yourself. And depending on where you are in that journey, it could be longer for some and shorter for others. But it's looking at developing yourself. So if you're looking for self-confidence, it's being prepared to look into yourself and have that honest conversation with yourself. What are your beliefs? How do you measure your worth, your abilities? How do you respect yourself? How do you treat yourself? How do you allow others to treat you? And having those conversations and developing that.
Thank you so much. And we've got a nice comment from Janice. This is so helpful. Using the energy in the wrong place has provided her with some insight. So thank you for that, Janice. So as a coach, what do you do specifically to help your clients build their self-confidence? Yeah, what are the specific things that you try that really help? And I'm going to start with you, Jessica.
I think first and foremost, it's recognizing what's really important to them. So like getting in touch with their why. You know, you have the Simon Sinek golden circles, and at the nub of everything, you know, the nub of success, or whatever you define as success, is your why. So I help clients to get in touch with that, because I think that when you have that firm foundation of being really clear on what's important to you, clear on your North Star, your values, it's the best place to start. So it's preparing the inside. So, you know, thinking about your state of your why, your state of mind. So developing that positive state of mind, and having building your self-belief, and recognizing what you're good at, being able to articulate what you know you're good at and articulate it clearly to yourself, and also, you know, to be able to articulate it clearly to others as well, is a really good starting point. And then thinking about what you might do externally. So for example, you know, sometimes I've worked with people who say, you know, when I'm going into a meeting, I find that I've got so much to say, then I get into the meeting and actually I go completely blank, or, you know, I'll say something, I don't say it with enough conviction, and so then someone else will repeat it and their point gets taken. So a really practical thing is really prepare for meetings. You know, if you can get the agenda in advance, think about what your point of view, your take is on the different points of the agenda, so that you've always, you know that there's something that you can say and you've prepared how you might say it. And it also means that your mind is so focused that when other things come up as well, you know, you've got that point of view and that perspective ready to share. And some other real practical things is about surrounding yourself with the right people as well. You know, it's the saying, surrounding yourself with the radiators, not the drain. So being really conscious about what your circle looks like, you know, who you have around you, who are your mentors, who are your sponsors, who are your cheerleaders, and who are the people that you can, you know, who can be a willing ear or a shoulder for you. So really thinking about that circle that you have, and just remembering that the confidence, it can be a self-fulfilling cycle. So it's about starting with the right mentality and the right belief in yourself, and then that will influence how you act. It will influence the result, and it will influence the feedback that you get, which in turn will influence how you feel and what you believe about yourself. So start with the right mindset, definitely.
Amazing, thank you. And just in case anyone's not familiar with the sort of start with why piece that Jessica mentioned at the beginning, there's a great TED talk by Simon Sinek, S-I-N-E-K, that talks about it, because it's a great resource, and can be really, really helpful. So thanks for helping everyone just start to think about, you know, what is my why? What is the thing I want to do? I'm going to move on to Carol. What about yourself? What do you think, Carol?
So what I do is I identify get them to identify what is at the root of the lack of self-confidence by getting them to explore what their thoughts and what their beliefs are about themselves and what it is that they need to do, or the environment that they're in. Because our thoughts and beliefs shape how we feel, and many of us act and behave according to how we're feeling. So if you're feeling anxious about something, you're worrying, you're feeling fearful, chances are you won't do what you need to do or you want to do, or you'll do it, but you won't do it to the best of your ability. And so what I do is I get them to challenge their thoughts and beliefs. So like the example that I gave earlier with my client who thought she looked foolish at interviews, get them to challenge what they think and believe about themselves, and to look at what is a more helpful perspective to have, where's the evidence to support that belief, and put things into perspective. Because if you can change what you think and believe, you change how you feel, you change how you feel, you change how you act and behave. And then another thing as well is also looking at your overall well-being, because when you're not at your best, you're more likely to lack the confidence. So if you're tired, you've not had enough sleep, you've been running around ragged, meeting after meeting after meeting, and you're feeling drained, or you're feeling low in energy, that is going to affect how you feel as well, which will affect your confidence. So it's about remembering, think, feel, act. And you challenge what you think and what you believe, you change how you feel, you change how you feel, you change how you act and behave.
Great things.
And if I could just add as well that, and this is particularly for those of you who are introverted, because of the misconceptions around introversion, a mistake that many people make is thinking that introverted leaders are not confident. And I've had many introverted women and men say to me that people say, oh, you lack confidence because you don't speak up enough. But if you are introverted, it's being confident within yourself too. So despite what people are saying, just to be your authentic self.
Wonderful advice. And Lisa?
Yeah, so another approach that I've used with my clients is where they've lacked confidence is to identify areas where they have had confidence in the past. So where they have felt confident in dealing with something or a situation. And we question that. So I ask them when was it and why was it that you felt confident then? And then look into, so what and who was involved in that environment? Was the setting, who was there, who was not there? And actually come up with the tangibles of what made them feel confident in that environment. And then subsequently then look at the same things, the same questions, I should say, in regards to when you don't feel confident in an environment. So when and where was that? Why was that? Who was there? What was there? And going through that. And by doing that exercise, you can ascertain what the real facts are, what is actually true, opposed to what is a limiting belief. And also why they stopped believing that they can't do something in terms of ability or just feeling that confidence, and when they can. And then that can see when their belief serves them well in terms of, right, I've got this limiting belief because it protects me from this and this is why I do that, or when it doesn't serve them well and when they need to get rid of it. So it gives them the action steps and the confidence to decide for themselves how they can change their environment from a non-confident one to a confident one, or one that serves them better.
Thank you so much. And I love the building on that sort of solution focused approach. Let's not just look at where we don't have confidence, let's look at where we do, and let's learn from that, and let's build on that, and let's expand it, which is a really positive, solution focused and forward looking approach, which is very empowering for people who are developing their confidence. I'm going to ask you, Nita, then I'm going to jump to the questions because we're getting lots of questions here.
Well, I think many of the Jess and Lisa and Carol have sort of covered it. And I think, some of the areas that I would kind of reinforce is what Lisa was sort of saying, tapping into a peak performance in terms of, what was it you did really well, and how can you take that learning, that experience, and put it in a situation where you are less confident. So really very solution focused around that. Looking at gremlins, the saboteurs that you have, the sort of and how they get in the way. I mean, one of the saboteurs that sometimes I come across with high performing men and women is being perfect, perfectionism, and how does that serve you? And where does that get triggered for you? And it's funny because I was having a supervision session myself this morning, and I was feeling, and my supervisor said to me, but where does that trigger come from for you? And having gone back into it, and I thought, oh my God, that's where it was. And for me, sometimes what we have to pay attention to is where are our triggers. But there's lots of, there's lots of ways, are we focusing on our belief system, or are we focusing on our behavior, or is it a skill thing as well? So when a coachee comes into that space, it's looking at where is the intervention they want to make. Is it at this kind of deep level? Is it at the skill level? And I think within the coaching relationship, I sort of firmly believe, we create a container where we can actually explore any of these issues depending on, where the coachee wants the intervention.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So this question really builds on what you were saying, actually, Nita. The question is, what about high, almost unrealistic expectations that someone has for themselves, irrespective of what expectations others have of them? In some ways, that feels more difficult to manage. They'd love to hear our thoughts on that.
I'm happy to go. So when you're placing those high expectations on yourself, what I would say is about looking at your tolerance levels and what is good enough, and striving, well, and because often when you have those high expectations on yourself, like what Nita sort of touched on, is the perfectionism, and so it's about looking at your tolerance levels and raising your tolerance levels and recognizing what is good enough rather than striving for perfection. Don't put such a, if you were to, so for example, I had a client who was had placed high expectations on herself. She's a perfectionist, and she would spend ages on things before she actually would submit them. And so I asked her, well, who is asking you to do it to that extent? And there was nobody, it was her. And so what she did was she identified what was good enough, did what she needed to do set herself a particular time frame to do it, and then submitted it. And she said that was the first time she'd actually delivered on a project without feeling so stressed.
Wow. I'm going to jump to another question. That was a brilliant answer. And we got really lovely feedback about this idea of introverted leaders as well from Aisha, really related to being an introverted leader and confident. So you got a big thank you for mentioning that, Carol. So this question, which I really love, what experience or event helped you become more confident in your career? Who wants to answer that one?
I'm happy to go. Shall I go, or Nita, do you want to?
No, you go.
Have you both? So go first. We'll go to
I think for me, it was actually related to something Jenny did for me actually many years ago around public speaking. I had decided I had this real limiting belief about my fear of public speaking, that I couldn't do it. I wasn't very good at it. I always needed to have notes in front of me. And what always happened was that I was literally petrified with fear. I'd have these notes in front of me, wanting to not miss anything. There was a bit of perfectionism creeping in there as well. And as a result, I'd come across as quite stilted. I wouldn't feel great in myself. The feedback wouldn't be bad, but it wouldn't be great either, which then fed into my belief about being not very good at public speaking. And actually just learning to reprogram my brain almost and put it to one side. And so to put the notes to one side and start to have that belief that if I'm asked to speak about something, or if I've offered to speak about something, it's because I have some knowledge about it. I'm not going to know everything. I'm not going to be nobody's an absolute expert. However, what I do know is valuable, and to operate from that place. And when I started to tell myself that story and believe that story, it changed the way that I approached public speaking, which in turn changed, the result, changed how I felt, changed the feedback, and it changed so much. And it was really down to that changing the narrative and the story in my head. And the way that Jenny helped me with that is because she was always the person to say to me, well, of course you've got something to say, why don't you just say it? And it's sort of just by removing the notes and relying on my knowledge and experience completely shifted everything. And that really helped me to build my confidence when it came to speaking, doing public speaking, giving presentations. And so that's something that I did that really made a massive difference in my in my business and the work that I do.
Lovely, great to hear. Thank you. And you'd never guess now. That's for sure. You've really gone on that journey. And Nita.
Thank you.
I guess a couple of things that pop into my mind, and something that I think Jess was touching on earlier on, is having people around you who can champion you, people who are there in terms of, even though you might be having a bad day, they're there in terms of your support network. That is very, very important. And the second thing for me is, actually two-part to this, is believing that I'm always at choice. And when I'm working with clients, sometimes, they say to me, they made me feel that way. And I go, how did they do that? And so for me, even when I'm having a rubbish day, I know that
I'm always at choice in how I choose to respond to that day. And if I want to be miserable, that's the choice I will be making. And so for me, that is a very empowering way of being, really, that I'm always at choice in how I respond to a stimulus that I'm encountering around in my world.
Thank you so much. I love that. I'm at choice. What advice would you give working mothers who are strapped for time and energy for their confidence at work? Who wants to speak to that question?
Was you going to speak, Nita?
No, go ahead.
Go, Carol.
What I would suggest is practicing mindfulness. Particularly, as a busy working mum, you're on the go, you're juggling work, you're juggling your family life, and your mind, your thoughts and your mind can go all over the place. You might be at work and you're thinking about what you're going to do for dinner, what you've got to do with the kids and things like that, and that can create that negative sort of spiral where your thoughts sort of get out of control, and then you start feeling anxious and your confidence is affected. So when you find that your mind is all over the place and you're thinking about 101 things at once, just bring it back to the present, to focus on the here and now and what it is you're doing and what it is that you need to get done in that moment. And when you do, that will help you to feel so much more calmer. And when you feel much more calmer, that will help you with your confidence as well.
Thank you.
Can I just add one thing into that? I think what Carol said is absolutely true. And I think also think about how you can manage your energy and yourself rather than your time, because more often than not, you don't have as much control over the amount of, well, you don't have any control over the amount of time you have to do your job, be at home or your working hours. But if you think about how you want to feel and manage your energy in the time that you've got, that can be more empowering, because you can control your energy. You can control, how you want to feel. It's back to Nita's point earlier. And so if you're focusing on your energy and what you want to spend your energy on and what your energy is best spent on, that can be really useful as well.
Thank you. Great. I want to jump to this question, which is about health. So how can you be confident if you have an autoimmune disease where sometimes you suffer severe brain fog or brain freeze? It's hard to be confident when you realize your disability may cause you to not be the go-to person. I've had a few bad experiences where colleagues have said, due to me mentioning my learning style as visual, they felt uncomfortable working with me as I told them I had an autoimmune disease, multiple sclerosis. Disability can really destroy your self-confidence. And I know this isn't the same, but I think anything that you're going on in terms of health, and we can think about menopause, can cause brain fog, for example, and freezing and not feeling the same, or being really hot when everyone else is cold, and that changing things. So there are many different, you're talking about an autoimmune disease, but I think anything that physically means that you're not the way, not at peak performance in the way that someone else might want you to be, or have a different style, and that could be that you're neurodivergent as well. All of these different things could impact you. So any thoughts on this? Lisa, do you want to, I don't know if you want to tap into this question, but I know I haven't heard your voice for a while. I want to give you a space.
Yeah, thank you. Exactly what you said there, but also it's that worrying often about what people think, and it's taking that away, and it's not being arrogant about who you are and that, but it's actually being confident in your ability and what you can do. You can't control how other people react, but you can actually use your situation to your benefit. So you being upfront and actually saying, this is how I like to learn, this is how I like to work. It actually opens that space there, but also own it, own yourself, know who you are, know what you're capable of, and don't let other people's opinions shape or change you, because that's how your confidence gets lowered. So keep confident in yourself and not worry about what other people are thinking. Worry about how you are thinking and how you are feeling, and then the situation you'll see change around you.
Thanks, Lisa. I see you've unmuted. Carol, did you want to add?
And I was going to say, oftentimes when people respond in the way that they have to use, because they lack understanding, they lack that awareness and understanding of people who are different to them. And so I would totally agree with what Lisa said, is about accepting who you are as you are and becoming confident in that. So that means that when people do say things like that, it won't have such an impact on you. You can then choose to acknowledge that, well, it's probably their ignorance to your situation, your condition.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, there's no deficit here. So often people put this focus on what, you know, what you're not bringing, but that what am I bringing is where you where to really focus your energy and your time. So this might be the last question we will see. I struggle with selling myself, but have been fairly successful at work. How do you overcome downplaying what you've done and identify your skills in order to be able to sell yourself? Thoughts on this one?
I'm happy to. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Lee.
No. We've got two of us now. It's very similar in terms of worrying about what people think. And that's something that we do. We don't try to oversell ourselves or say, oh, this is what I've achieved, this is what I've done. And it's getting that balance between arrogance and humility, because we feel like we have to be humble, let somebody else praise us, but actually knowing what you're capable of, what you can achieve, what you can do, what you have done, and speaking about it is actually really good for yourself and good for others, because they may not know, especially people that you don't interact with on a personal level, or they've not seen you in a certain work situation. Actually explaining, actually, I have done that before at this workplace, and this is what I've done, and this is how I handled it, is actually really empowering, because it's that communication and letting people know what you can do, what you're able to inspire to others.
Amazing. And Jessica, do you want to add?
Yeah, I'm gonna, I think Lisa summed it up, but also to remember that, you know, it's when you talk about your skills, firstly, yeah, if you don't talk about them, how are people going to know? And if you don't, you know, brag about yourself, who else will? I remember that it's not bragging when it's based on facts. So if you achieve things, talk about them, because you're sharing information, you're telling people something that they may not otherwise know, and look at it as helping your organization to actually use you more effectively, use all of your skills more effectively. And so if you take it from that perspective, then it doesn't feel so much as you I don't know, being arrogant or any of those things, and feeling that you need to downplay anything.
Wonderful.
Can I quickly add something to that? And it's great advice what Lisa and Jessica said. And if I could add that, when you're talking about your achievements and successes, focus on the difference that you made and the value that you added, because that takes that spotlight off you in that uncomfortableness that comes with talking about your achievement. So focus on the difference you made and the achievement, or what the result was, but make sure that you explain that it was as a result of the action that you took, it was as a result of what you did.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I just want to say one thing, which is building on what Carol was sort of saying, is one of the key things in organization that's really important is exposure. So the more you share your achievements, not in a braggy way, but in a way that is tangible, that how you've added value is really, really important. And what this reminds me of is that really famous poem at the inauguration of Nelson Mandela by Miriam Williamson, which is, there's a line in there, it says, when we let our light shine, we automatically give permission to others to do the same. So for me, so when we are comfortable in, you know, sharing in terms of our own achievements, people know that you're coming from a place of humility, that you're sharing it not because of your ego, is because of, you know, sharing in that space so that others can learn, really.
Wonderful, wonderful. I think we might need a part 2 of this one. Lots of questions have come through. We've only got 3 minutes. I don't know if there's a very quick answer to this question, which is again about perfectionism and identifying what's good enough, and how do you convince yourself what's good enough, rather than spending more and more time doing something because you never finish it, because there's always more to do. So if you're in that perfectionist, you know, it can always be better space that you don't want to let go of work. How can you convince yourself that it's good enough?
I think, but it's quite interesting because I think self-acceptance is it's a starting point, a self-accepting that maybe, I have this tendency. And actually going from there, self-acceptance means that we are whole people, we got different facets to us. And it's not just focusing on our perfectionism, but maybe doing some work around, well, what keeps me going, in terms of having a be perfect driver, really, and having that exploration. And one of the things, as a practical thing that I love using, is something by Tara Brach called the RAIN acronym, which is recognize, allow, investigate, and nurture. So when you're being a perfectionist, be curious. What is it that's making me do this right now? And investigate it, really.
Beautiful.
And,
Love that.
and if I could add,
okay.
When you're in a situation and you're worrying and you're overanalyzing things, ask yourself, well, what's the worst that could happen? If I submit this like this, what is the worst that could happen? And so challenge your thoughts and what you believe about yourself, and look for the evidence to support it. And ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen? And if that was to happen, what could I do? That will help you to rationalize your thinking, because that thinking is not helping you. So what is a more helpful perspective to take?
Okay, thank you so much. We're going to have to bring this to a close. I think the audience, if you feel that we should have a part 2, do type in the chat what we would focus on in the part 2, because it does feel like there's so much more. And I had more questions to ask as well. Thank you so much for attending. If you want to find out more about the work I do specifically, you can go to jennygarrett.global. If you want to find out more about these amazing coaches who you've heard speak today, maybe you want them to coach you, please go to our diverse coach directory. And also our next event takes place on the 27th of October at 12:30. You want to be a better public speaker? How can a coach help? So anyone who resonated with Jess's experience, it would be a great one to come along to. Thank you all so much. It was really great to get the interaction and great to have the questions. And thanks so much for our coaches for being so generous with their wisdom, their advice, their lived experience, and what they do to support people to be their most confident selves. So thank you very, very much. Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for attending.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Actually, Tanya, could you put everyone in the waiting room? Do you know how to do that? As they can, if they're not.
Yeah, just
Or I know what I can do. That's fine. I can. Okay. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you. Oh. Oops. Okay. Are we just left? Got you back. I was moving everyone else into the other room. I was trying not to move you guys because I wanted just to take a quick photo. And I'm just going to spotlight us all again. But did I lose someone? Have I lost Nita? I did. Yeah,
Looks like it.
I think she left, but let's take a quick photo. Oops, I haven't stopped recording. Okay, 1 second. Right. Was that you cancelling the breakout rooms, Tanya?